Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we're doing a deep dive into something that could have some pretty big ripple effects if you're at all involved with businesses that work with government contracts.
Right.
So think about this.
Oh.
We've got a bunch of reports and articles about proposed changes to how the government figures out which businesses are small enough for certain set-aside contracts.
Right.
And it seems like these changes could really hit businesses hard that grow through acquisition.
Absolutely.
So we're going to break all of this down. We're going to look at who's for and against these changes. And try to help you figure out what to watch for as this all plays out.
Gotcha.
So to set the stage a bit, can you walk us through how the current system works?
So right now, the system basically comes down to how big a company is when they bid on a contract. So, for example, you've got the NASA SBA program, which stands for Solutions for Enterprise-Wide Procurement. And even if a task order comes up years later, if a company was small, when they initially bid, they're still considered part of that small business pool, even if they've grown a lot in the meantime.
A company could be way bigger by the time they're actually doing the work, but they still get to benefit from that initial small business label.
Yeah, that's basically how it works right now. Companies are supposed to tell the government if an acquisition changes their size. But right now, the agencies have some leeway, some flexibility in how to deal with that.
That flexibility is what the SBA, the Small Business Administration, wants to get rid of.
Exactly. And in one of the reports we've got here, the SBA actually uses the word loophole to describe the current system, especially with GSA contracts, those General Services Administration contracts, where that initial size classification matters for years after the...
I mean, are they saying that these companies are being sneaky? And does this create some kind of bias against acquisitions as a way for companies to grow?
It does seem like it could discourage that route.
Acquisitions can be a good thing, though, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this kind of ties into another issue. The DOD, the Department of Defense, has been saying that the defense industrial base is shrinking and that there's not enough competition.
Right.
So how do these proposed changes fit into that? What if a company or an investor knows that buying a smaller company that has some of these government contracts could actually make those contracts worthless?
Oh, wow.
Because they suddenly get reclassified as a bigger company.
That's a huge risk, especially for those cutting-edge tech firms.
Absolutely.
Where investment is so important. So
exactly.
You mentioned the SBA is going after this flexibility.
Right.
And they're specifically targeting something called the 180-day rule. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So the 180-day rule
Right.
basically protects businesses.
Right.
That submitted a bid more than 180 days before an acquisition.
Oh, okay.
Meaning they'd still be able to get the contract.
Yeah.
Even if they grow bigger through that acquisition.
Yeah.
After they submit the bid.
But wouldn't that make sense? I mean, a company could be deep into the bidding process before they even think about acquiring another business.
Right. It's not necessarily some kind of sneaky trick.
So where do things stand with all this? Is there a timeline for when this might actually happen?
Well, the comment period for the proposed rule change ended back in October.
Okay.
So right now, everything's in limbo. The SBA, they don't exactly move quickly.
Right.
So it's doubtful anything will be finalized this year. Plus, there's the possibility of a new administration coming in January.
Oh, right.
And that could change everything.
So a lot of uncertainty.
A lot of uncertainty for businesses in this space.
See, this is all happening while the defense industrial base is shrinking. Like you said, that's another layer of complexity.
It does.
Speaking of complexity, I was reading about the DOD saying something about profit margins. Didn't they say that anything over 15% is extortionist?
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And that caused a lot of pushback from industry experts who said that the DOD's math doesn't include all the costs. So it makes the margins look a lot bigger than they really are.
So it seems like there's a disconnect between how the government sees business and how things actually work. And that's important as we try to make sense of these proposed SBA changes.
Absolutely.
So let's play devil's advocate for a minute. What's the SBA's argument for these changes? Why do they say that the current system is unfair?
So their main point is that the current system lets bigger companies keep operating in that small business space, let's say. It's an issue of fairness, of keeping those set-aside programs working the way they were meant to.
So they're worried that bigger companies are gaming the system and taking advantage of these set-aside contracts. But aren't there good things that can come from acquisitions? I mean, they can help smaller companies get the resources and expertise to grow and actually make a bigger impact, especially in the defense industry.
Yeah.
It seems like the SBA is drawing a hard line between companies that grow through acquisition and companies that grow organically.
That's right.
Is that fair, though?
It's a good question.
Is there even a real difference?
That's something to think about.
What if a company just grows to the point where it's not small anymore? Does it just lose access to those set-aside contracts?
That's a really good question, and it shows another part of this whole debate. The rules right now do give some flexibility when it comes to organic growth. Companies aren't penalized for growing bigger if it happens naturally.
So it seems like the real difference they're making here is between organic growth and growth through acquisition.
Yeah, it seems that way.
And that raises the question about what the goal of these small business programs really is. If it's about giving smaller companies a fair shot, shouldn't the rules be the same, regardless of how a company grows?
Right. It's about leveling the playing field.
Exactly.
Making sure that everyone has a chance to succeed.
But are we maybe sending a mixed message here? Like, we want you to grow, but only if you do it our way.
It could be seen that way.
Right?
And that could discourage companies from taking risks and trying new things.
Right. And especially in a field like defense, where innovation is so important.
Absolutely.
We've talked a lot about the potential problems with these changes. But to be fair, what does the SBA say in favor of these changes?
Well, they say that these changes are necessary to protect small businesses and make sure that the programs are actually helping them. They argue that the current system allows bigger companies to take advantage of loopholes and get contracts that were meant for smaller businesses.
So they're basically saying that bigger companies are cheating.
Yeah, that's their perspective.
But by focusing so much on stopping that, are we missing out on the good things that acquisitions can bring, like innovation and job creation and a stronger industrial base overall?
It's definitely something to consider. We need to find a balance between preventing abuse and not creating too many obstacles for businesses that are trying to grow.
Yeah, we don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Exactly.
It seems like this whole conversation is really about the tension between supporting small businesses and creating a competitive market.
It is. It's a tough balance to find.
And in this case, it could have a big impact on the defense industrial base, which is already struggling.
Right. We need to be careful not to make things worse.
This idea that acquisitions are a way for companies to get around the rules, it feels like it's missing something. What about companies that just grow really big?
On their own.
That's a great point, it seems like. The proposed changes treat those two types of growth very differently. But is there really a difference if a company starts small and grows its operations and hires more people and makes more money all on its own? Is that somehow better than a company that grows through an acquisition?
That's a tough question. It really makes you think about how we define success and what we value.
And what kind of message are we sending if we're saying that one way of growing is better than another?
It can discourage companies from taking risks and from investing in new and innovative ideas.
And that could have a real impact on the defense industry.
Absolutely. We need to be careful not to stifle innovation.
This has been a really interesting discussion about a very complicated issue.
It has.
We've talked about the details of the SBA's proposal and about the bigger picture of innovation and investment and the future of the defense industry.
And we've highlighted the importance of thinking critically and looking at things from different perspective.
Because the decisions we make today will have consequences for businesses and industries and the economy as a whole.
For all of us.
So, for our listeners, what are the key takeaways? What should they be watching for?
Well, first of all, there's a lot of uncertainty right now. These rules aren't final, and a new administration could change everything.
Right.
But that doesn't mean you should just wait and see. It's important to start thinking now about what these changes could mean for you, so you could be prepared.
So, for small business owners out there, what should they be thinking about?
If you're a small business owner, think about how these changes could affect your ability to get contracts, especially if you're thinking about acquiring another company. You might need to rethink your strategy and be very careful about the risks and rewards, those government contracts that looks so good right now might not be so great if the rules change.
And what about bigger companies and investors?
For them, it's all about assessing the risk and thinking about the long-term consequences. The landscape could change a lot, so you need to be prepared.
So basically, everyone needs to be flexible.
Exactly. No one knows for sure what's going to happen, so you need to be ready for anything.
This is about more than just paperwork. It's about the future of innovation, especially in defense.
Absolutely.
We need to be having these conversations and thinking critically about how to create a strong and innovative defense industry.
We do.
And that's where our listeners come in. It's not just about following the news. It's about understanding the details and being prepared to adapt.
Right. Knowledge is power.
Exactly. We've talked about a lot in this deep dive.
Yeah, we have.
And hopefully it's given you a good understanding of this issue and how it could affect businesses.
Definitely.
So just to recap, we've looked at the proposed changes, the arguments for and against them, and what the consequences could be for businesses and for the defense industrial base.
Exactly.
And we've talked about how important it is to stay informed, to really understand what's going on, because things are changing.
Yeah, they are.
And businesses need to be ready to adapt.
They do.
Hopefully this deep dive has made you think about this topic and maybe even given you some ideas as you make decisions for your own business.
Absolutely.
It's important to remember that these policy decisions, they're not just abstract ideas. They have real effects.
They do.
On people and on businesses.
On all of us.
And those effects can be really big.
Especially in a sector like defense.
Exactly. This whole conversation has shown how difficult it is to balance supporting small businesses with creating a competitive market.
Right.
It's not easy.
It's a tough balance to strike.
And we need clear rules that are fair.
Yeah.
And that help businesses grow.
Absolutely.
Especially in defense.
Right.
So to wrap things up, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away from this?
I think the most important thing is to stay engaged, stay informed, and don't be afraid to ask questions. The decisions that are being made now will have a big impact on the future.
On all of us.
Yeah.
Well said. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. We'll be back soon with more insights into the topics that matter to you.